Hello, 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 and welcome back to everyone joining us for Rooted to Thrive, that elevate our humanity podcast. It's your friend, Rochelle Peterson-Ansari, aka Professor P. Now, today we have Valerie Kind-Rubin, who is the managing trustee of the Patricia Kind Family Foundation. Now, this is a family foundation that has been around over 30 years now,
Just about
practicing,
30. Yeah.
yeah, oh, just about, okay, and practicing what is now referred to as trust based philanthropy. We're going to hear a little more about that later. And the focus, the premise is relationship based, right? Relationship based multi-year general operating grants are placed in the hands of nonprofits and their needs are put at the forefront. So Valerie and I met actually only, I would say, a couple of months before this recording at a library in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And we were in a room full of nonprofit leaders and funders who came together to discuss what it looked like to meet this moment. So, Valerie, thank you for agreeing to have this conversation with me today. How are you doing?
Good. I'm very good. This is, Monday morning, so I'm energized to start the week and, excited by all the things we have going on and moving forward. And it's getting close to the holidays, so long list of things to get going on, but doing well.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. Well, before we start our conversation today about stronger together, the power of cross sector collaboration for community impact, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am going to be 68 this week, and I'm looking forward to that. I've had a number of different careers over the course of my 68 years, and this is kind of my most current chapter. But I was began as a special education teacher, working with behaviorally and emotionally struggling kids. And then I went from teaching to working as a counselor and a therapist with the same population, and then eventually to my own private practice as a parenting consultant, uh, you know, uplifting parents and helping them to see humor and come up with new techniques that might work for kids that were challenging. And then I came into the role of managing trustee following two of my two sisters um, as leading the foundation. And I'm in my eighth or ninth year. And we are a family foundation that, as you said, has been around for almost 30 years. And we have funded in communities where financial poverty is a major obstacle. And so we fund smaller organizations led in historically marginalized communities by people with that lived experience. And we provide general operating, as you said, multi-year grants, and we focus them on deep relationships. And I love that. And I see some amazing individuals, leaders, and programming going on in the communities. It's just all inspiring.
That's wonderful. So
Yeah.
now you gave us a little bit about your background, and we know that this is a family-run foundation. How did you make the decision to begin doing this work in particular?
Well, it was back, you're talking about the origins of it. Uh,
Well, no, your decision to work with the foundation because you were a special
oh,
ed teacher. Yeah.
okay. Well, I was the youngest of the three sisters, and then there's a brother on either end. And the three of us were primarily the ones that were interested in leading this foundation. There is another foundation in New York that
Mhm.
my brother is right now the leader for. But I was always looking forward to this as a next step, as another chapter. And so when it came time that my second sister was ready to end hers, I eagerly stepped into this role. And it's been exciting. And there's been a lot of things that we've just continued along doing the same as we were doing that we all strongly believe in. And then there was a bucket list of things that I wanted us to take on over these last 8 or 9 years.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I've really loved doing this work, and we've made changes, and we just hired our first non-family member executive director to take us into the next chapter. So
That's
that's very exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Yeah,
Well, now our conversation today at the core of it, right, is collaboration. So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about what collaboration means to you, not just as a strategy, but as a value that protects human dignity and strengthens community.
I think relationships is at the core of everything. And they, begin just within our small nuclear families. And then as we get older, that expands out to more people and more different networks. And then as we get our careers, then we have our networks that we're collaborating around in work as well as personal, and sometimes they intertwine. But if I place relationships as one of my core deep relationships, core values, uh, then collaborating is very intertwined with that. It's about having those relationships and working together with those people, and for the better good. We really, when you put two minds together or four minds together, you just get so many different ideas that you can launch and work on, and things that you maybe didn't think about that somebody else points out. And so I think you just magnify your impact when you work together with people.
Yes, yes. Before we started recording, we were just talking about a recent experience I had, right? And I was talking about how that experience grew into something organically, made the experience so much better
Yeah.
because of the people in the room and what was happening in the room. This was a musical event. However, literally, it sparked something in someone who started dancing. Then it sparked something that dancing sparked another person dancing an African dance, more specifically. And then the owner of a Cuban dance studio jumps up with a cane, y'all, right? Like, I mean, it just vibrated in the room in a way that it could not have if we were not together. And I know
Right,
that, yeah, that is a basic, example, and not as deep as we're talking about when it comes to relationship building. So,
right.
Valerie, you and I share that core belief. I always would say that I think I get along, I communicate well with most people from all different walks of life because I see people as a value add.
Absolutely.
And I'm the
Absolutely.
person that gets off the bus. Like I don't know what it's for, but I'm open to it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I think that's so true. And it's still value added, even if people disagree with each other,
Oh
because it's
yes.
about learning and understanding. And so I think
Mm.
there's value when you partner with people that want to move in the same direction, but there's also value in people that raise other questions for you.
You know what? That is so powerful. And I implore people to remember that in their family relationships, they do it all the time.
Yeah.
They don't
Have
give up
people
on
they agree with and then those they
it.
don't agree with. Oh, yeah. And
Right?
running a family foundation is for us, is an entirely family board. So
Ah,
you're kind of collaborating on a professional level and you're collaborating on a personal level.
oh yeah, you have a lot to say about that. There might be a word you need to share on that topic just alone, right? But
Yeah, complicated.
yeah, yeah, it's complicated but worth it, right? Like we're
Yeah, it's
not giving up
it's
on each
it
other.
is an opportunity for great joy, in celebrating one another. Yeah,
That's phenomenal. Yes. Well, let's talk a little bit about this partners fund that I've heard
yeah.
about. Like, what need or gap were you seeing in how historically marginalized communities were or weren't being funded?
Well, I think there's a number of things. So just to give the history of where this began, we've been around for 30 years and we've always been practicing some of the tenets of trust-based philanthropy that are now being more and more explored and taken on by more different philanthropies and foundations. And so being multi-year and general operating grants and always making site visits has allowed us to get deeper relationships. Uh, and because of those things and staying more closely involved with our grantees, we're able to have them leverage our support to get new support, to get in the door with other funders or to meet other grantees that are doing the same work, but that it's, they're so focused on just trying to get their work done to make ends meet, to meet the salary, that sometimes to be able to meet this one's doing this over here, this nonprofit's doing something else is difficult. So I think the value add of those kinds of opportunities that exist for us because of that is of great benefit to the nonprofits and to us. And so we were spending at a very high spend rate of 15%, because in 2008, we decided we didn't want to cut back on our grant spending. So we maintained that even through rough times in our economic environment. And so we got to the point in these last few years where we were rapidly going down and out of business. And we decided, let's revisit that. Let's make a intentional decision whether we want to spend down and go out or we want to stay around longer. And we framed it that way and not perpetuity, because these things evolve. And when the next generation is leading, they might see it differently. So we did make that decision, and it was that we wanted to continue longer. And that decision came by hiring a third party to do community conversations and interviews and surveys to see how people stood on us, in particular, the Patricia Kind Family Foundation, going out or staying in. And largely it was felt that we should stay in. And I think that was because the role we play in Philly as, maybe being slightly ahead of the game with some of these initiatives and plays a part into that and into why people did say, rather than spend down, stay around longer. And so what that meant is we had to cut our direct grants that we were giving to the organizations down, to lower it down from 15% to just over 7%. And that was painful. That was painful for us. We didn't want to see that happen, and painful for the nonprofits. So in thinking outside the box, there's a number of pooled funds in Philadelphia. They're pooled funds that are made up of different foundations coming together for a common cause. Like one of the first ones we joined was the Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness. And we've joined the Gender Justice Fund for Trans Resilience. And so we're in about 9 different funds like that, but they're all with foundations. And so sitting back and thinking, how can we keep strong within Philadelphia with less funds? And one of the ways that we also keep strong is that we support capacity strengthening opportunities for grantees. And we began that a number of years back, and we have a certain amount of our budget that goes to that. But it was so wanting to continue with capacity strengthening and with leveraging our support for the nonprofits. And that's where the expanding our funding base into not just foundations contributing, but also businesses and corporations and individuals. So people that at the end of the year, their heart is in a great place and they really want to make a difference in these communities, but they don't know who's out there, and they don't know, they're not going to, get in the car and get out in North Philly or Southwest Philly and walk around knocking on doors saying, who's good and doing good work here. So we can partner with them to find these groups, to vet these groups, to go on site visits, but to invite them to join us on a site visit and learn more about an organization. And this is a way to uplift the work that's being done by these groups and make connections and shared learnings for both those that are donating as well as those that are receiving the funds and doing this incredible frontline work. So that was the birth of the Partners Fund. And it's going to kick off January of 26 will be the opening of the grant cycle. And all the grants will be received by the end of January. And then with the help of our board and the advisory committee that's been formed, we will review grants, go on site visits, and then make recommendations. And we try to only go on visits where our intention is to fund, so that we're not asking nonprofits to put out a lot of effort for a site visit and then stand a 20% chance of getting it. The likelihood is that they're going to get it well over 95% chance. And so the site visit is about beginning the relationship, getting to know each other, setting something that's a more trusting, comfortable space to be in so that we can work together for the next 3 years, and they can share the good, the bad, the indifferent openly with us, and that we'll be transparent with them. So we've begun that, pooling together funds from all those different groups that I said, and we're trying to go from 1.2 million up to 2 million by January. So that's the goal. Strong goal, high goal, but a lot of enthusiasm and commitment to try to get us there.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And what I hear you describing is moving from charity to solidarity. Yeah.
Yes, I think let me hear how you're talking about solidarity. Let me hear what you mean by that.
I think from one perspective, you're building a relationship, and you're also going to the people to you're funding what they need as opposed to where people struggle. For those who are not as familiar, many people or many organizations, nonprofit organizations, and that actually includes colleges, universities, and other entities that we don't actually call nonprofits, that they often have had to do what a funder asks.
Okay, so now I have a better idea of what you're talking about. Yes, and I think that is really important. Solidarity and sustainability, being able to take these relationships and grow them for the better good of the community, which is what the nonprofit is doing. And the idea that we can do that in solidarity with a varied group of people is huge. So often people will go to the nonprofits and say, well, you got to diversify your funding. You're too reliant on foundations. But if they don't have their foot in the door with anybody beyond the foundations, and sometimes not the foundations, then what? They're not in places and spaces that they can diversify to individuals. So this bringing together in a solid way all these different groups enables that to happen. And solidarity in terms of the relationships being sustainable and things that can grow and that they really know one another in a deeper way is really important. And that we're not telling them what to do. We're listening to what their needs are. How can we help you meet those needs is really critical. As opposed to saying you have to do it with this program or that program or in this way. Because I think too often nonprofits feel that they're in a position to come up with something that will fulfill what that foundation is looking for or what that individual is looking to give to, when if they can come with, this is who we are, this is the great work we're doing, are you interested? Do
Right.
you want to get on board with us? So it kind of flips the narrative a little bit, and it
Mhm.
puts the privilege, that some of that privilege is on those donors and funders, that the nonprofits are providing them with a privilege to come into their world. And so it's
Yeah,
a real flip on the way you think of it.
that's
And
true.
yeah, yeah.
Thank
And there
you.
is phenomenal work. Now, you did mention universities and hospitals. I will say that that is not our focus area, even though they are
Right.
nonprofits, because we're
Mhm.
really looking at the smaller ones that
Mhm.
don't get the recognition. If we can make a difference, then those, by using us to leverage, then those are the ones we really want to be there to help.
Right. So I would assume like people who are in that startup phase, they are right. Like it's
Yeah,
the one person with some volunteers.
yeah. And so maybe not that first year of startup, but
Okay.
second year when they've
Hmm.
gotten some stability going, but they might still be all volunteer led. So
Yes.
one organization that we funded was a great organization called Ordinary Heroes. And
Mhm.
Ron had actually been running this youth program for 8 years already before we met him. But it had been all volunteer led, which didn't allow him to get in the door with other funders, because there can be a wariness about, if you're volunteer led, what's your future? Are you going to be able to carry this out? But by providing him with general operating grant that was also 3 year, it enabled for them to have a staff now, a paid staff, and through that paid staff to get more funding. So that one grant, and these aren't huge grants. These are $15,000 to $25,000 times
Okay.
3 years. So we're
Okay.
not talking huge grants, but we are talking grants that it can enable them to start having staff, and staff that can help them get more funding and to get in the door with funders that previously they couldn't get in the door
Mhm.
with, and to say, hey, Patricia Kind Family Foundation is supporting us. They came on a site visit and they said, give them a call. They'll be happy to tell you about the site visit. So
Oh, I
those are all
love
some of
that.
the small things that can help connect uh, and build new relationships.
I love that because I didn't actually envision it where you're basically also serving as a sponsor, but like an active sponsor
Yeah,
where like another funder, you could be put down as a reference
right. Absolutely.
for that.
And
That's
and
wonderful.
although I said not startups, one of the ways that
Hmm.
we reach some of those other ones is there was some research that was done this past year. And one of the outcomes of it was that the nonprofits in Philadelphia felt, and the region felt, that
Hmm.
unless you are somebody's grantee, unless you're one of their grantees, their babies, that there's nothing out there for you. So when we do the capacity support, we now offer that to, you can be our grantees or you might not. You might have just heard about us from another grantee, and sure, come take a workshop that's talking about board development, or
Hmm.
a longer 7-month cohort that's looking at fundraising, or a
Okay.
wellness grant. So those smaller ones might be able to take part in those things. It's a way to begin a relationship with us, and then possibly grow into being an ongoing grantee.
Oh, that
Um,
is wonderful.
yeah.
Can people take advantage of that before, like while they're establishing their nonprofit, or should they already be do the
Yeah,
paper?
no, we don't, because some nonprofits have fiscal sponsors, so they're not
Mhm.
their own entity, but they're in the early stages. And yeah, there's no reason that they couldn't also participate in this,
All
because
right.
those are some of the skills that they're looking to grow to
I
become
know
strong enough to start applying.
that
Yeah,
is fantastic. Thank
yeah,
you so much for that. And I know collaboration can be messy. People
yes.
bring different values, expectation, egos. What practices help keep those relationships authentic and human-centered?
I think communication and trust. Trust is
Mm,
really important. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when the first funder came to our board meeting and said they wanted us to contribute to a pooled fund. And I was like, wait a minute. Why
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't we just do this ourselves? Why wouldn't we vet? We know, kind of this idea like maybe we know best.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got in touch with that and recognized that that kind of was you know, white supremacist view that we know best, and that maybe this group coming to us, they knew better about this immigrant wellness. And so it was letting go of some of that and also putting trust in their expertise and their work with the nonprofits, which could magnify our work together and magnify the work for the nonprofits. So I think trust and open communication, asking your questions, but trusting them and their answers and not feeling like you have to control what they're doing. I
Mm-hmm.
think some of those messy situations and when things are uncomfortable to bring it up um,
Mm-hmm.
and get it out in the open and talk together, because I think most times you can reach a solution that feels good to everybody.
Yes, indeed. You know, we could have a whole episode on that alone.
Yeah,
No, seriously, around trust and communication. And what
yeah.
popped up in my mind, so there was this, especially because you also mentioned white supremacy, there was this film called The Color of Fear that came out years ago. And the facilitator, Le Manoir, who is he's a filmmaker. He's many things. um, but filmmaker, documentary filmmaker. He had a counseling background. He's one of my vicarious mentors. And he was facilitating a group of men who were on a retreat to really talk about race relations, for example, as one thing, right? And
To
one
talk about what I missed you, to talk about
race
what?
race relations.
Okay.
And one key question that came up when there was a problem, right? Like we're witnessing a problem come up, and people were being questioned repeatedly, repeatedly, repeatedly. And Le Manoir said, what keeps you from believing the other
The
people?
answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
But somebody has to ask that question.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and, and it's great when we can ask it of ourselves
Yeah, I
because,
think that it begins maybe with asking it of yourselves.
mhm,
And then I think you can open that up to asking these things within relationship. Like I think a
mhm,
bunch of the things with race relations and white
mhm,
privilege and the horrors that have gone on uh, for non-white individuals for so many years, for Black people in slavery, all of that, we're at a point where we need to look hard at that and look within. But then I think when it really gets closer to change is when then you can do it within relationships where people can be honest with one another. And sometimes that can be painful or awkward, but it can also be for tremendous growth. Um, I I remember one thing with the same leader I was talking about before, and I was running by something with him with the wording of something, and I used the term in a sentence, poverty. And he stopped me and he said, we were piss poor growing up, but we weren't in poverty. We were rich in community.
correct.
And
Mhm,
it totally changed my thinking. So
mhm,
that now when I use the term financial poverty, and I
mhm,
don't overlook the richness that's there in so many other ways.
mhm,
But if I didn't have a relationship with Ron where he could stop me and say that, then I would have continued doing that and been ignorant to what that meant and to how it might have come from a place of white privilege that it was
mhm,
either rich or poor, but
mhm.
you weren't looking at all the intricacies of that.
That's right. Right. And I mean, yeah, it's a mindset of privilege, not necessarily white. in that from that standpoint, depending on, how the person's thinking. Uh, and I just clarify that because people of color are susceptible to doing the same thing.
You
However,
mean
and
to making judgments?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, and especially people who have spent time living in financial poverty. Some
right.
forget where they came from, but there was a societal message, and it's still there, not as strong as it was in my past.
Yeah,
I was coming of age in the 70s and 80s. Um, but there is still that message, kind of like when you're in a neighborhood where there's financial poverty, it's something to get out of. That's
yeah,
the message I received, right?
right.
But I never thought of us as poor. Every need was met for, in my case. I
Yeah,
was never homeless. I always had not only clothes on my back, but what I wanted,
yeah, yeah.
within reason, because my mother, when I went to the short skirts, we had some discussions. But,
Yeah,
like there was always an abundance of food. That was one thing.
yeah,
You will be fed.
yeah, yeah.
you know,
Right.
uh, even if you can't get that pair of jeans that you want, when you want it.
Yeah,
So I never saw us as living in poverty until I became a sociology major in college, right? I knew that we didn't have money for me to go to college. So I
right,
had to get a scholarship. I had to do something to
right.
get there. But other than that, I didn't feel impoverished.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And we've been spending sometimes, many of us in the education world has been spending decades trying to get people who we're educating to be teachers, people who are in the schools in particular, to let go of that mentality
Yes.
because
Yeah.
that bakes into the mindset of the kid.
Right. And to generalizing.
Yes, and the
Uh,
families, right? Like
yeah.
that, we know
Right.
better than you. And it's like, yeah, well, to some
Yeah.
degree, you know some things better than me, but I have something to bring to the table.
Yeah. As that mom or that dad,
Hmm.
I'm in there every day and I might have some obstacles which are making it hard for me to be there in the way you think I should be there.
Thank you.
But I am in there and I do know my child. And
Right,
it's important to respect that,
right.
and not sort of, I think, too often think of one as bad and one as good.
That's right. I mean, there was a time when, and I'll get off that soapbox. There was a time when schools would have, say, open school night, right? Well,
Mhm.
some parents couldn't get there in the time frame, the one time frame you gave them,
Right.
right?
And so to
And
view that, yeah, go ahead.
but they were judged saying they didn't care.
Yes.
They didn't care, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Or they didn't come to the conference, or they didn't come to back to school night, or
Mhm.
anything. And instead of seeing it, the obstacles they're dealing with, and we need to work around those because they really do want to know what's going on with their kid.
Mhm.
You're not making it available. I think
Right.
it's just a whole different way to look at it. Uh,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
such an important thing.
Yes, and it's a similar through line when it comes to supporting nonprofits, right?
Yeah.
And building
Yes.
relationships. Period.
Yeah.
You have to ask the people. The people know. They are the experts, actually. And
Yes. 100%.
yes, that's what flips the script. Like that's the new script, that the
Yeah.
people are the experts in their own lives. So how
Yeah.
do we tap into their knowledge, their
Right.
cultural funds, to understand how we can support them and be in solidarity with them to meet their goals?
Right. To meet their goals, which ultimately benefit the communities. But it's our job to support the nonprofits as the
Hmm.
experts to know how to
Hmm.
best meet the needs of the community.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah. And
So,
so, yeah.
mhm, go ahead. No, I was just going to ask if there was any final advice you would give to professionals who want to collaborate across difference, who are in the funding space to think about partnerships differently? Any advice you want to share?
Um, I would say try to think outside the box
Mhm.
because that's when you think outside the box, you come up with ideas that might never have crossed your mind before and could be really exciting. And that's what happened with the Partners Fund is it was thinking outside the box because I didn't want to see us offer less grants. I didn't want to see us not be able to get the money to the nonprofits and not be able to keep championing their work as much. And so through thinking outside the box, the Partners Fund was born. And that's
Mm.
where I'm putting the bulk of my energy right now is finding people that can donate. And whether that's donate $10 or 10,000 or 100,000, but jump in, jump in and be a part of a collaboration and see, what you like and what you don't like. But I think I would go back to what I said at the beginning that it's about relationships and it's about partnering and collaborating with others. And that's where it's just like what he said to me. We were pissed poor, but we were rich in community. These communities can be rich in community too. Philanthropists and the nonprofits together. There's a richness there that we really want to make make the most of and grow.
Yes, and that brings me to my very, very last question. You just brought up another question, sorry. But what does give you hope right now about how collaboration can reshape the future of community impact in Greater Philadelphia and beyond?
I think through bringing collaboration more closely where you have the nonprofits a part of it with all these different groups. Um, and there's the trust, so that there's the trust in us to carry this one out
Mhm.
because our expertise is the multi-year general operating, and then our trust to have Scattergood carry out some of the participatory grant making because their expertise is bringing the nonprofits together to decide where the funds are going to go. And
Mhm.
there's expertise out there. And obviously, with the ultimate knowledge of the nonprofit world is with the nonprofit leaders. But I think once you see yourselves as partners with all these different people, there's no limit to the good that can be done.
Yes. Oh,
And
that
so
is a
that's what I want to see. What kind of good can be done with this? And how can we uplift the nonprofits, make new connections, and get more dollars to the communities?
excellent, excellent, excellent. Oh, this has been Valerie. Thank you so much for spending time with me and the Rooted to Thrive tribe. Now, how can people reach you or the foundation after this episode?
They can reach me by cell, which is 215-534-3884, or they can reach me by email, which is Valerie KRVALERIEKR at P Kind Family Foundation.org. And I'm happy to talk to and explore it with anybody, or they can go on the Patricia Kind Family Foundation website and look under Partners Fund. And also just explore the website and see what we're doing and who we're granting and what our philosophy is. So lots
Yes,
of different ways.
that is fantastic. Well, listen, you've heard it here. Collaboration isn't just about pooling resources. It's about relationships. It's about
Yes.
even restoring, building
Yeah.
relationships. And what we've heard today is that when people and organizations come together across sectors with honesty, humility, and a shared commitment to equity, something powerful happens.
Right.
Communities, yes, right? Communities
And
begin to
across
thrive.
across color lines, across race.
Yep. Communities begin to thrive not because we've saved or anyone saved us, but
Right.
we've because they've been listened to. or that
Yeah.
people have listened to them. The Partners Fund is showing us what it looks like to move from competition to connection, from
Mm-hmm.
scarcity to shared abundance. This is
Mm-hmm.
what it means to lead with human dignity at the center. And if you're listening and wondering where to start, begin with a conversation. Find a partner, a project, one community effort, and bring what you have to the table. The impact you make multiplies when you do it together.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. And so,
Thank
again,
you so much
yeah,
for
thank
giving me
you.
this opportunity to talk with you and talk with people on your podcast.
I appreciate you so much, Valerie. Who knew when we met that this
Yeah.
is where we would be? Well, I am Rochelle Peterson-Ansari. This is Rooted to Thrive, where we believe that collaboration isn't just a strategy, it's soul work. Thank you for stopping by and listening to the end, folks. Love it when you listen to the end. Now, until next time, keep leading, learning, and building a world where dignity is a non negotiable. And if you haven't already, subscribe and share this episode. I deeply appreciate you. I'll be here waiting for you next time on Rooted to Thrive.